It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler. It's everyone's friend, it's Tyler.
Hey guys, Tyler here. I'm making this video in direct response to Tim Pool, and so without further hesitation, let us begin. Tim Pool makes the positive claim that atheists are trapped in lower order thinking. Instead of asking questions of existence, they question history. They tend to think God is a human belief instead of thinking about physics in the universe. Before I give a direct response to Tim Pool, I first want to state that the beliefs that I express in this videos represent my beliefs and not anybody else, and that hopefully by making this video, it exposes people to more ideas outside of theism. That way, most people can get an idea where exactly other people are coming from on this particular topic. And so hopefully by making this video, more and more knowledge is actually gained because of me talking out on this kind of topic right here. Now, when it comes down to the word atheist, it is very, very important to us to actually define what exactly an atheist is, because there are so many kind of definitions that's associated with atheism. But the definition that I'm using for this video for the case of atheist is somebody without theism, because in terms of linguistics, we do in fact know that the A means like not something. And so when you say someone's actually an atheist, what you're saying is somebody is not necessarily a theist. And so when I say the word atheist in this video, I'm saying that somebody who does not subscribe to the ideas of theism. Because I don't necessarily subscribe to the ideas of theism, by that definition I just gave in this video, I would be a default atheist. Now, the ideas of belief systems and the ideas of knowledge are totally separate categories, largely because what someone believes to be true is a separate question of what somebody actually knows to be true. For example, when people use the phrase Gnostic, it's in direct reference of Gnostic, which means knowledge. And so somebody who's actually a Gnostic actually has knowledge of something. I'm agnostic in the sense that I don't necessarily really, truly know about the origin of the universe. And so I don't claim to have special knowledge about anything about the universe above anybody else, not even scientists or the people who study theology or anything like that. I just simply say, I just don't know about the origin of the universe. And so I don't mind saying that, but I would say also that the ideas of theism come across as less likely. When it comes down to the schools of thoughts of atheism, there's not a single one, because again, it's a question of somebody believing or not believing in a higher power. And so there's ideas like materialism, which basically states that the material is all that exists and the non-material don't necessarily exist. There's the ideas of methodological naturalism, which, by the way, I subscribe to the ideas of methodological naturalism. There's the ideas of philosophical naturalism. There's the ideas of humanism. So not a single atheist actually share the exact same epistemology when it comes down to the origin of the universe and how they came to that conclusion. When it comes down to the issue of God, there are two separate major categories that I actually distinguish. The first category is something that is known as religious gods. That is to say that there are gods that are directly believed by religious believers and worship at their particular place of worship. For example, the Christian God with the Christians, or for the case of the Hindus, the Hindu gods, or the Greek gods, or the Roman gods, or the Mesopotamian gods. Those particular gods that are worshipped at places of worship and feature in mythology, I would say that classifies underneath religious gods. Now, when it comes down to the ideas of, God with a capital G, it comes with the ideas of deism. And deists actually make the claim that more or less that there was actually a prime mover that created everything, and just simply left. It does not answer your prayers whatsoever, and basically, of course, just created everything and just went. And so I would say there's a huge difference to me when it comes down to religious gods versus a deistic kind of God that created everything. Now, the first claim that Tim makes was that atheists think that God requires a human mind and is not necessarily the universe and just physics. I'm assuming when Tim refers to God here, he's referring to a deistic God and not necessarily a religious God. And so throughout this video, I'm referring to God as the deistic God and not necessarily a religious God. I find it so incredibly interesting, Tim, that you mention that the God that you subscribe to does not require any type of human mind whatsoever, that is actually the universe and also the physics. But for you to make that statement that God does not require a human mind, you use your mind to make the determination that God does not require a human mind. Let me explain that. You see, ideas don't necessarily exist in a vacuum. We do in fact know that ideas are contingent upon culture, are contingent upon the mind to make people influence what kind of ideas make the most sense to them and what ideas make the least sense to them, right? And so I would say that all of this theology for God beliefs throughout the years, whether it's like the deistic kind of God that you're talking about, or like, the religious God that you're talking about, they're all contingent upon a mind. That will mean that a person had to sit down on the ground, think about the ideas underneath a tree or something to say, you know what, these ideas that I thought about, like these gods, like the religious gods or this creator God that we're talking about here, we need to actually think about that. That makes the most possible sense in terms of the hypothesis that we are basically talking about. So all ideas are contingent upon a mind. Therefore, all God ideas are also contingent upon a mind. Therefore, without a mind, there is no God belief. He continues to say that atheism requires low levels thinking. I don't think it requires low levels thinking to be an atheist. I mean, yes, there are stupid people who are theists. There are stupid people who are atheists. I will not necessarily deny that particular fact. However, I would say that people who are professional philosophers are probably the brightest people of our time period, and they have like a high brain level of thinking when it comes down to these kind of issues, right? And there are scientists, many of them are atheists, who are also the brightest people out there. And so I would say this particular question about high level or low levels thinking is not a fair assessment. And for my case, like I said earlier, I consider myself a methodological naturalist. And so that will mean that I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea of a supernatural prime mover. That will mean I need to question everything about existence and the natural process behind it. For example, where does consciousness come from? Where does the ideas of life come from? Where does, of course, the order in the universe come from? And I'm looking for naturalistic answers to explain the explanations on why exactly X actually exists instead of Y. And so I think it's actually harder to look for scientific answers on the why something is something, because it's actually, I would say, easier to have like a God claim for things like the weather, for things like the grass, and everything else, because I ultimately think that the word God has no particular kind of meaning whatsoever, because there are competing theologies about different God claims, and every single person thinks that they have the right idea. And I think that saying, for my case, that I don't necessarily know about this stuff is actually much more intellectually honest, and makes me actually simulate my personal curiosity about new discoveries every single day. And so to look for naturalistic answers, to answer these kind of questions, it's actually much more harder to look for that kind of stuff with naturalistic answers than to say that God actually did it. And so it does not require low levels thinking. But what do you guys think about my answers? Tell me in the comment section down below. And as always, I'll see you guys next video.